Well, how you doing? Okay. Recently, I've made a video calling out Wolfie 6020 on a claim he has been making for 5 years. Now, he did not address that. Him and others um, basically character assassinated my video as much as possible and claimed I was incorrect and wrong about many things that I wasn't. Um, he didn't address his claim that I wanted him to do. He focused more on my knowledge of aircraft as opposed to addressing his claim and providing data and evidence for his claim. So, what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to show you his claim. First of all, this is a video made by him back in 2016. So, I'm just going to turn up the volume a little bit and hopefully you'll be able to hear it. And I'll have to play a minute or two of this video. So hopefully
the camera. Okay, first thing we need to understand is that the Earth is not as small as many people will think, and your typical airliner travelling at 450 knots will actually take 48 hours to travel around the Earth. Now, obviously they won't do that non-stop, they'll have to stop and refuel, but that's the actual rate at which it's going to travel around the Earth. So if we imagine this aircraft is going to travel all around the Earth, it would obviously have to pitch down and pitch all the way around 360 degrees. That's logical, right? But how long does it take to do that? It takes 48 hours. Now, come down and have a look at this analog clock, and we're just going to watch it for a few minutes. Notice you can see the red second hand sweeping around. The movement is obvious. Can you see the minute hand moving? That's the minute hand. If you watch it really closely for several minutes, you'll obviously see it moving. What about the hour hand? That's the hour hand pointing to the 3. Can you see that moving? That hour hand actually moves around the clock once every 12 hours. So it takes 12 hours to go 360 degrees. When we're flying our aeroplane, we take 48 hours to go 360 degrees. So the actual rate of pitching down, the rate the aircraft has to actually pitch down like that, is 4 times slower than that hour hand is moving. 4 times slower. Now, imagine this was a real clock and we grabbed an ant and we put the ant on the end of that hour hand. Do you think it would feel anything? Do you think it would feel any centrifugal force? Do you think it would feel any movement? Do you think it could actually detect any angular change? Well, the answer is no. And
yeah, that's because it's on a little tiny clock. Anyway, now, so we know his claim, right? Right, that's his claim. So I'm just going to go to here, a second. So here he is recently commenting to someone else out on my video. This man, flat earther at T Brown, I presume he's a flat earther. Drop and curvature are not the same thing. Drop is a tangential displacement from a fixed position. It's not a measurement of dynamic curvature. Wolfie replied, at T Brown, no, following curve on a globe does not require descending, right? So it doesn't require descending. Calculated from the plane, right? Whatever. So right, it's a calculation made from the plane, supposedly, or I don't know what that really means. Descending means getting closer to the ground. By remaining the same distance above the ground, there is no descending required and curvature is followed. So Wolfie's basic claim is that he follows an altitude, right? And that means that he's going around a globe Earth. This is basically what he's claiming. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go here a second, right? Okay, the 5-year unsupported claims of Wolfie 6020, right? For 5 years, Wolfie 6020 has made the claim that aircraft are flying around and over a globe Earth without actually supporting this claim. The only support that he has presented for his claim is that while in flight, he and other pilots follow an altitude. But this means absolutely nothing, as any pilot who would fly over a flat plane would do the exact same thing, as those pilots would have to account for altitude changes also due to temperature and convection cells, most notably in the equator region and between the tropics, as this region has the largest amount of convective activity. The problem with the claim being made by Wolfie 6020 is that he is not and has not provided any correction data that would be in keeping with a sphere out geometry. He has simply stated that he and other pilots follow an altitude and has equated this with being evidence that he and other pilots fly around the globe Earth, solely due to Wolfie himself having a belief that he is living on a globe Earth. In debating terms, this is known as a begging the question fallacy. This is a fallacy as it preassumes an outcome and is purely based in the supporting of the belief of the presumer, with correlative and flimsy evidence through the incorrect use of modus ponens. Correct modus ponens is if A then B, A therefore B, whereas incorrect modus ponens is if A then B, B therefore A. That's the incorrect. What Wolfie has done is, if A, he is on a globe, then B, he will follow an altitude around the curve of that globe to fly successfully around it. But to fly around a globe would mean that a pilot would have to account for not just the drop value of 8 inches per mile squared, which would require a pulling back under thrust constantly, but also the impending curvature that would mean having to constantly dip the nose of the aircraft below horizontal. Now, Wolfie 6020 does follow an altitude, but that does not equate directly to flying over a sphere Earth, as the same action would be necessary on a flat plane, as following an altitude does not mean it's a globe Earth. So what evidence has Wolfie got that supports that he is not flying over a flat plane? So Wolfie did state in his 2016 video that it does require pitching down to fly around the globe, right? So it would require pitching down. So he's stating that he does pitch down. That means he pitches below zero. This is what he's stating in his 2016 video. He's stating he pitches below zero. So when he's flying, let's say a commercial airliner is flying 4,000 miles, right? Because they fly a large distance. When they're flying several thousand miles, that's a good, on the globe Earth, that's a good section of the globe. So there would have to be a huge amount of pitching down for the curvature, accounting for the curvature, and obviously accounting for the drop. Now he has said that he does pitch down. This is what he has said in his 2016 video. So if Wolfie is flying over a sphere, if Wolfie is flying over a sphere with a radius of 3,959 miles, then from a hypothetical starting point of cruising altitude, negating the takeoff, with a top cruising speed of 550 miles per hour, an aircraft will cover 9.16 miles a minute. So after 1 minute, there would be 59.93 feet of drop. After 2 minutes, there would be 223.7 feet of drop. After 5 minutes, there would be 1,398.42 feet of drop. After 25 minutes, there would be 34,960.6 feet, or 6.62 miles of drop accumulated. This is just the drop alone and is not connected to curvature corrections. So does Wolfie have any data that supports the above drop calculations? Wolfie 6020, have you got any data that shows that you make corrections for the above drop calculations, as if not, then you cannot claim that you are flying above a sphere Earth with a radius value of 3959 miles. And remember, this is purely focusing on the drop value alone and is not taking into account the curvature that would have to be accounted for over those distances. So it would be helpful if you could provide data that supports that you do and are making the necessary corrections for this drop and curvature. So Wolfie, I will await your supporting data or your concession of defeat in the matter. Brian's logic. Okay, so I have more, although this is directed at Wolfie, this video, I have more to go. And I'll tell you why. Because in my previous video, I shared some of these here. In my previous video, after my previous video, in the comment section, I was told I was wrong about everything. And not one person was corrected by any of the pilots I was told I was wrong by. The first pilot was a flat earther who told me I was 100% wrong. And the 4 other pilots, one of them being Wolfie, were globe earthers. And not one of them corrected anybody telling me I was 100% wrong. And some of them even told me I was 100% wrong about everything I stated. And I'm going to show here how they are wrong Either that or they were just straight out liars. Even right, so I'm going to show here where I'm not wrong. How it was claimed I was wrong, and pilots even claimed it, and they didn't correct other people that were claiming I was 100% wrong. It was never corrected. So these have in my last. This is from my last video. Engine power increases lift, and lift causes the airplane's nose to tilt upwards from horizontal, making flight over a consistently curved surface a physics impossibility. I was told that's completely wrong. Okay, then it comes to the wing. Fast moving air equals less pressure above. Slow moving air equals more pressure below. Right. So what this means is that high pressure below and low pressure above. Right. Now I said that this was due. I said that lift was due to entropy. Right. Right. And I was told I was totally wrong. It had nothing to do with entropy. Right. High pressure going to low pressure is part of the description of entropy. It's part of the second law of thermodynamics. And Bernoulli's principle directly correlates with the first law of thermodynamics from what I'm reading. So why are they stating that lift has absolutely nothing to do with entropy when lift is all due to the description of known as entropy? We call entropy that describes these effects that we don't know the cause of. So when I said in my video that lift was due to entropy, and that it was a direct cause, and that entropy was an increase in entropy was the reason for lift, I was told I was wrong. So I'm going to show how I'm not wrong. Also, as well as that, when it comes to takeoff, I have down here I said takeoff is an impossibility without wing lift, as wing lift causes the effect of tilting the airplane's nose upwards. Yes, you can't have takeoff, right, without wing lift, right? But it comes down to what creates wing lift. Now, I was told I was wrong. I was told that the elevators at the back of the plane, at the tail, create wing lift, right? This is what I was told. So you can sit stationary on the runway and move your elevators all day long, and you're not taking off. Okay, so I'm going to go on further. 1 second now. As I said, I'll have to bounce around a bit here. So I'm just going to come back here, right, for a moment, back to here, and then I'm going to go back to that, right, where I was told I was wrong. So this is an airplane, a Lufthansa, I think it's a 747 or something, in flight, and here it is. As you can see, it may not be exactly up, although it looks like it's at cruising altitude. As you can see, the nose is slightly up in the air, right? So airplanes fly this way. This is how they fly, with the nose 1 to 4 degrees above horizontal, with the exception of one airplane, which I will come to in a while. Okay, this whole area here, right? This whole area must be accounted for if Wolfie is claiming to follow an altitude around the globe. If aircraft fly with their noses above horizontal by flying at cruising altitude, and Wolfie claims to follow an altitude correction path around the globe, then Wolfie will surely be able to show where he accounted for not just the drop value of 8 inches per mile squared, but also the impending curvature that he would have to account for. So what evidence does Wolfie have to present to support this unsupported claim of his? If let's say the green here is the globe Earth, and the purple is the atmosphere that goes around it, right? Now, this means that Wolfie, right, could not fly horizontal and still be going around the curvature following an altitude. Because for him to follow the altitude, right, it's not just a case of flying horizontal. On a globe Earth, the altitude directly corresponds to the surface of the Earth underneath. So he has to pitch down constantly. He'll have to be pitching down constantly to do this. There is no way out of it, right? As I showed earlier with my calculations, after 25 minutes of flight, he would have had to account for 6.6 miles of drop. And that's not even the curvature. That's just the drop value. That's not even the curvature. Because curvature would involve him having to pitch down. Now, he does state that he does pitch down. So he's admitted that he pitches down. So now he has to provide evidence that he pitches down and the aircraft pitches down. Because, as you can see here, how is this aircraft going to fly in a direct straight line and be pitching down? And accounting for drop. The only way it can do it is constantly pull back on the power to account for drop. Does it do that? How often in a minute does Wolfie have to pull back on the power? How often does he have to do that within a minute? And how often within a minute does he have to bring his nose, the nose of the plane below horizontal? Because I was on many flights and I remember just a smooth ride. The power was not being constantly pulled back on, and the nose was always above horizontal, always. So I don't know where he's going with that, but it's his claim. He's after claiming it. So how does Wolfie prove that he is not just flying over a flat plane when he has no corrections for aircraft nose pitch, with the exception of the corrections that are made above the horizontal? So if we take the orange arrow above as an aircraft that is following the top of the purple band, these two here, right? And we treat the top of the purple band as a specific altitude, and we treat the green below as a flat plane, then the explanation given to us by Wolfie 6020 as to how he flies his airplane around the globe only makes sense on a flat Earth and does not in any way explain or provide evidence for his 5-year claim. So if this is the same exact scenario but over a flat plane, then all he's doing is accounting for this straight line here. As I said, there could be, if you're going over the equator region, there's going to be a lot of convection. So it's likely we'll have to make corrections there. And it depends on weather and where you are in the world and where you're flying. What way there will be some corrections, but in general, you will probably hold a pretty steady course for most of the flight, most at cruising altitude, with a commercial airliner. So you will make corrections, but you won't be constantly having to correct. You're from place to place with different temperatures. Yeah, you will have to, if you're flying over. If you're after flying from Asia and you're going to cross maybe, I don't know, the Middle East, you'll be making corrections because there might be different convection going on there or different things. Yeah, sure. But pitching nose down, where does Wolfie, have you ever lifted, the aircraft? Because on a globe Earth, I don't see how you could ever make a correction up the way for altitude. It would be never possible. You'd always have to be correcting down. You could never correct up. Have you ever corrected up? Why would you ever correct up on a globe? You'd only correct up the way on a flat Earth. You'd never correct up the way. I couldn't see any reason why you correct up the way on a globe. You're constantly going down. Correcting up the way would be to correct up the way even once would mess you up within a minute, 2 minutes of flight, because you'd be moving at such a rate. So I don't know where you're going to go with that one. So I'm just going to go back to just 1 second. Here, this is from my last video. So aircraft fly with their noses between 1 and 4 degrees above horizontal on average. The reason they fly this way is due to how aircraft are designed to fly. By using the air pressure differential above and below the wings, aircraft are pushed ahead through the atmosphere by thrust, and the wings of the aircraft are designed in such a way to create and take advantage of a pressure differential, where faster moving air glides over the top of the wing, causing a lower pressure system, and slower moving air glides underneath the wing, causing a higher pressure system. So lower pressure at top, higher pressure below. Due to entropy, this causes lift. Yes, entropy, right? High pressure going to low, that's what causes lift. That's part of the entropy description. High pressure going to low is part of the second law of thermodynamics. It's part of that description, right? As the higher pressure under the wings strive for equilibrium with the lower pressure above the wings. So, the more thrust that is imparted by the pilot of the aircraft, the faster the air flows over the top of the wings. And the faster the air, the lower the pressure. And as we all know, an increase in pressure differential will mean an increase in entropy. Now, I was told I was completely wrong about this. So I was told I was wrong, that the more thrust that is imparted by the pilot of the aircraft, that the faster the air flows over the top of the wings, and the faster the air, the lower the pressure. And as we all know, an increase in pressure differential will mean an increase in entropy. So I was told I was wrong about that thrust has nothing to do with lift, basically. That's what I was told. So the more thrust, the greater the entropy. The greater the entropy, the more lift. The more lift, the more tilt the nose of the aircraft will have upwards. I was told I was completely wrong about all this, right? So let's just see. Okay. Let's go, where are we now? I'm looking for, back here. Okay, this is from Boeing.com, right? This is about how aircraft fly. So I'm just going to go in here. Pitch attitude can also change with thrust. So pitch attitude can change with thrust. With underwing engines, reducing thrust creates a nose down pitching moment. Increasing thrust creates a nose up pitching moment. So when you increase thrust, you instantly, right, cause the nose to go up. Now, why is that? Right? Why does that happen? So let me just come back to this one. Okay. So torque causes nose to pitch down. Okay. So you have here two things. You have this center of lift, which is here, and you have what they call the center of weight, or what they call center of gravity there. Okay. Now, what happens is that would cause the nose to pitch down because it creates torque towards the nose, which would bring the nose down the way, right? But, right, thrust causes tail downforce. It causes I think what they call as a downwash on the tail. So the thrust causes the tail to go down, right, which causes the tilting of the nose up the way. Now I know this is showing it in kind of an angle, but the whole point is that the thrust causes the tail to be pushed down. That's what thrust causes. So thrust, when the tail is pushed down, the nose is tilted up, and that instantly causes lift. Right? So lift is caused by thrust. Thrust will cause lift. As I said, you can sit on the runway all day and play with an elevator on the back of your wing, or sorry, on the back of your tail, but that won't take you off the ground. You need thrust to do that. So you can't have lift without thrust. Can't be done, right? And you can even create lift without using the elevator, just with thrust alone. You can create lift, right? Because it pushes down on the back, which would tilt up the nose, which would create lift. Now there's more. Now, so tail down force creates torque in the opposite direction. So the tail down force creates torque in the opposite direction. So it's a fine balance basically between your thrust and your elevators. Obviously, they're obviously needed, right? Your thrust and your elevators to keep your plane balanced, right? But lift requires, on almost 99.9% of planes, lift requires the nose to be above horizontal. That's why they always fly with the nose above horizontal. So when you're flying with the nose above horizontal all the time, Wolfie, how are you pitching down to go around the globe as you've claimed in 2016? How are you doing this? You surely would have data or something to support these corrections. You'd have something for the drop and for the nose down pitching. You'd have to, as you said, over a 48-hour period, you could go around the full circumference of the globe Earth, which would be the let's say the equator of your globe, which would be 24,940 miles. So after a 12-hour flight, how much pitching down would you have had to do? You know, so I was told I was wrong. That thrust does not create lift. It does, and the entropy had nothing to do with lift. Entropy is the reason that lift exists. High pressure to low. It wouldn't happen without entropy. So thrust and entropy are the reasons you have lift. And more than that, I'm just going to come back here a second, right? So, right, when you have this is another thing, right? When you have the angle, right, this is called the chord line, right, which is the center of the center of the wing, right? When you have the chord line of the wing, right, this is at minus 8 degrees below, right, 8 degrees below zero. All this is all negative pressure. There is no positive. There was no lift happening. You can't have lift without having it above, right? It has to be angled above. So this is plus 4 degrees. And as you can see here, this is the plus, right here. And all the main area of lift, right, happens at just under the front edge of the wing. So this is the leading edge of the wing here. This is the area where lift happens. So lift automatically pushes up the front tail of the wing. That's what happens, right? Lift automatically pushes, because this is the center of lift. It's always about a quarter back of the wing, right? About a quarter back of the wing is where lift is where the main high pressure is. So that's what this area right here, and this is where the lift is, the center of lift is. normally on aircraft right there. That's because the leading edge of the wing is going through air, and what it's doing is it's separating. There's a boundary layer forming on the leading edge of the wing, and it's separating the boundary layer. Right? It's kind of complicated. The whole I don't even think they 100% fully know. There's a few different theories out there as to what causes the high and low pressure. From what I've found, and what I've listened to, I think it's so complicated that I think they don't really they're in the ballpark, but they don't 100% know for definite what exactly causes. Maybe I'm wrong. What exactly causes lift? But they know that it happens just under the front edge of the wing. So when I said earlier, and I said in my last video, that lift, right, that lift causes tilting of the nose, it does, because lift happens underneath the front edge of the wing. So it tilts the wing, which tilts the plane. And Wolfie claimed that he does pitch down to go around the globe. But if you pitch down, you have no positive pressure. There is no lift. You have no lift when you pitch down. As is shown here, it's all negative. These are all minuses. You have to pitch up to have any pluses. So I don't know where he's going to go with that. Now, the angle of attack too, if you go too high with the angle of attack, what can happen is the plane can stall. That's another issue, which I'll get into in a moment. But in general, right, the angle of with your angle of attack, right, lift does cause the nose of the plane to tilt up a bit. You impart thrust, right, which causes a downwash on the back tail, which tilts the nose up a bit. And then you also have this happening here at the front edge of the wing, possibly due to that. So lift and thrust cause the tilt. Before you ever use an elevator, lift and thrust will cause, from what they say, will cause lift. Sorry, it will cause the tilt of the nose, because the idea of the elevator is not just for lift; it's for control of the lift. Because if you impart thrust, it will create a downwash on the tail. Right, I just showed there. Right, thrust will create a downwash on the tail, which will tilt the nose up the way. Right. So I'll just go to this one. So what has to happen is the elevators must balance that. Right. So it must balance that, because if it goes too high, I'm just going to show. I don't think is it back up here. The stalling is it here? Right. I don't. Is it here? Sorry. It is it. Right. Stall. What can happen is that if you go too high, you can with your angle of attack. What happens is that you can stall, right? So you can stall. That means you lose lift if your angle of attack is too high. So it has to be above horizontal, but it can't go too high, because then you lose lift, right? So they need to control the lift with the elevator, but the initial lift is caused by acceleration, and lift and acceleration causes the tilt. So I'm not incorrect about that. The tilt of the nose is caused by lift and acceleration and lift is caused by entropy. And no one can dispute that. I even showed with Boeing earlier that they even agree that extra thrust causes pitching up of the nose. So just to finish off here, I think I'm almost done. I can't remember. I have so much stuff in here I wanted to go through. A second now. Oh yeah, I want to go to this a second. The MCAS, right? This is a Boeing thing where they have this system on their 737 MAX. I think it is because I had to put it on the 737 MAX. There it is. 737 MAX 8, because the engines were bigger. So they were having a problem. So they had to put this system on their planes. So what this does is it stops the nose of the plane going up too high, and stops stalling. That's what it does. So it keeps the nose of the plane within a certain amount of degrees above horizontal. So MCAS keeps it above horizontal, but keeps it at the right. helps to keep the plane at the right angle. Basically, is what it does. But it not only will it stop the plane from stalling, but it makes sure that the plane's angle of attack, as they call it, is correct. Right now, the pilots can still override it and whatever, blah blah blah. From what I read, so you can read more into it yourselves. But basically, the MCAS system is designed for safety and designed to stop stalling, right? Which means losing lift, the loss of lift. We have here, this is a kind of basically a Boeing or something big like that. You have both the center of lift and the center of weight here, right? Weight is down, lift is up. And as you can see, the center of lift is just on the wing edge here, just underneath the wing edge, right? And the look at the nose of the plane, it's designed for the air to go under. If you look at all these, they're designed, if you look at the design of the noses of these airplanes, a lot of the noses of airplanes are designed so that, especially the big ones, that send the air underneath the plane itself, right? To help the plane go through the air, it sends it underneath. So you have the downward force happening on the tail at the back, and which counteracts the torque that would normally push the nose down the way due to the lift and the weight, right? The centers of lift and center of weight, right? When there's a thrust imparted, it causes downwash and downward force on the tail, right? Which causes tilting of the nose, right? Which causes when tilting of the wings, which causes lift, right? Due to high pressure underneath the front edge of the wing and low pressure on top, right? So it causes lift, right? And that pressure there causes tilting of the nose also, because it's pushing up on the front edge of the wing. So, like, people might attack me on this video and say, "Oh, you're wrong about this, you're wrong about that, you're wrong about the other thing," right? And like they did in the last video, they just attacked, said I was wrong about everything, which I'm not. And not once did Wolfie address the claim. He's claiming to be pitching down, going around, flying around the globe Earth. So here is a plane flying with its nose pitched up. Now, this is the type of plane that Wolfie can fly. He's licensed to fly. He may not be flying ones as big as that because he flies private, but he can, and he has, I'm sure, flown those. So how is this plane going to be flying around doing all this pitching down that Wolfie's claiming when it flies with its nose up above horizontal, as that's the way it's designed to do? How is that happening? The only plane that flies with its nose below horizontal is this, the Boeing B-52H Stratofortress, known as I think it's B-52 bomber. If you notice, its wings, right, are up above at the top of the plane, and they're more like a glider wing. Although they go back, they're more like a glider wing. They're extra long, right? The reason that this is designed to fly with its nose, to fly horizontally, its wings are set in such a way that that the pilots fly with the nose slightly below horizontal to create lift of the wings, because the way it's if you can see here, the wings are kind of angled back. The whole point is that the way that wings are situated with in accordance with the nose. The reason for this is that they can then fly slower, right, and view what they're seeing and what they're going to drop. Obviously, bombs on it. That's what they did, right, and what they did with it, right. So it's designed that way for visibility, for the pilots to be able to see more below them, and also so they can fly a bit slower. So it's designed that way to do what it does. But it still has to fly horizontal. With its nose down, it doesn't go, its nose below horizontal. The rest of the plane is not pitched below horizontal, if you know what I mean. You'd have to look into it a bit more, but that's what it does. The plane doesn't fly down the way. It flies horizontally, but the nose below horizontal, purely for that reason. And because it does what it does so well, they're still used. They're still using them, and they're around a long time, but they're still using the B-52s. They're still using them. That's the only plane I could find that doesn't fly this way. So, Wolfie, you have a claim that you are pitching down to go around a globe Earth, and that you follow this curvature. So you have to provide evidence for the drop and evidence for the curvature calculations that you will have to make, or else you'll have to concede that you can't. Because you're making this claim with 5 years now, and you have not provided anything other than belief. You have a belief, that's all. Following an altitude means nothing. This plane here is following an altitude too, but it has to be following an altitude across a flat plane, because it's not pitching down. It would have to be pitching down constantly. There is no way out of it. So either concede that you can't provide the evidence or provide it, because it's been 5 years now, and I think everyone's sick of you and all your claims. So I would like as many flat earth channels as possible to mirror this video, as I want as much attention on Wolfie as possible, as Wolfie doesn't mind bringing as much attention as possible onto other people. So I want as much attention as possible on him. I want him held down, and I want him to support his claims. I don't want to hear about how I'm wrong about everything in my video again, and this, that, and the other thing, because I'm not. I'm not wrong. I'm correct in what I say, and I have videos that support what I say. So, my acumen on how aircraft fly doesn't need to be very good to know. A small bit of research can show that the airplanes fly with their nose above horizontal. So you're making a claim, Wolfie, for 5 years that you're flying around the globe, and you even stated 5 years ago that you're flying with your nose, that you pitched down to go around this globe, and you're claiming to follow the curvature due to following an altitude. That would mean having drop and curvature calculation data to support this. So you have to provide. That's the way it is. Thanks for watching.